A single accusation, after 1 million views, and a man who spent years quietly helping America's most inbred family was suddenly branded a scammer. This is not a piece of defense. This is the truth. Verified, documented, and undeniable. Not for clout, but to clear a name and protect a family the world seems far too eager to exploit, Mark Laita finally speaks out. Where narratives spread faster than facts in a digital world, reputations can be shredded overnight. Mark Laita is no stranger to the camera. He's given a voice to the voiceless through Soft White Underbelly. None more human or more haunting than the Whitaker family of West Virginia. A window into rural poverty, genetic isolation, and raw, unfiltered humanity, their story became a viral phenomenon. But the internet ignited when a viral expose by YouTuber Tyler Oliveira implied Mark may have misused funds meant for the Whitakers. Trust cracked. Accusations flew. What followed was a perfect storm of speculation, misquotes, and digital mob justice. For viewers, the story shifted from empathy to outrage. But Mark did not stay silent. He came forward not with rage or excuses, but with a voice weary from explaining what shouldn't need defending, with records and receipts. This isn't a drama. It's damage control. And this is the truth. Not for views, Mark Lee's first contact with the Whitakers was for a portrait, raw, stark, and compassionate. A single video grew into a series watched by millions. Captivated and moved, viewers were. Many asked the same question: how can I help? The answer came in the form of a GoFundMe, set up by Mark. It was designed to provide the Whitakers with basic support: food, clothes, transportation. No profit, no manipulation, just relief. Over time, the idea grew. Why not something bigger? A stable home, a house out of the crumbling structure they lived in. A new GoFundMe was created, clearly labeled for that goal. Nearly $130,000 was raised between both fundraisers. The records are public. $77,000 from the original, $55,000 from the house fund. But perfect plans don't wait for real life. According to Mark, every few weeks brought a new call. The car broke down. We need food. We're short on bills. And every time, he sent money. Transfers ranging from $2,000 to $14,000, sometimes multiple times per month. Mark provided screenshots of his bank statements, wire transfers made directly to Betty Whitaker's account at a West Virginia bank. When donations ran low, Mark didn't stop. He used his own funds to keep helping. Over $100,000 was given by his count, with an additional $25,000 out of pocket. And because GoFundMe donations are taxed, Mark took on the burden of paying 37% in taxes himself. Still, the full story isn't told by the totals. The dream of buying the Whitakers a house became impossible as the money steadily drained. Not from greed or theft, but from immediate, recurring survival needs. And while donors imagined a long-term goal, the Whitakers lived week to week, emergency to emergency. An endless stream of short-term aid became what was meant to be a stable future. In Mark's words, without the ability to stop spending and start saving, we were never going to get close to that house. Every cent was accounted for, but no one was keeping score until accusations started flying. And then, suddenly, the receipts mattered more than the reality. When people heard the Whitakers had raised over $100,000, expectations soared. A fresh start, a new home, stability for a family long trapped in a cycle of poverty and isolation. But the reality was far less cinematic. The GoFundMe balance never stayed high for long. The pattern was constant, according to Mark. Every few weeks, Betty or Larry would call with a new emergency. Sometimes it was a wrecked car. Other times, heating issues, food shortages, health problems. And every time, Mark transferred what they needed. Sometimes it was $5,000, other times $6,000 or $14,000. The numbers added up fast. Regularly, predictably, he wired the funds directly to Betty Whitaker's account. But as donations came in, withdrawals went out until the balance once again hit zero. Mark didn't hide it. In fact, he shared screenshots of his bank records on video, showing the wire transfers in full. He also reminded viewers, taxes on donations must be paid. And rather than burden the Whitakers, who are in no position to deal with the IRS, Mark covered those taxes himself. Even after the GoFundMe was depleted, Mark continued giving from his personal bank account, out of pocket. Then came the viral moment that changed everything. In Tyler Oliveira's video, Betty is shown on camera, confused, even dismissive. When asked where the money went, she responds, "I don't know." When asked about the house, she says, "What house?" To viewers unfamiliar with the backstory, it looked damning. But days later, Mark recorded a phone call with Betty. Calmly, he walked her through the facts, the money, the conversations, the dozens of transfers. And Betty acknowledged it all. Yeah. Every few weeks, sometimes 4, 5, sometimes more. She claimed she didn't know the money was specifically for the house and assumed it was coming from Mark's own wallet. But she confirmed unmistakably that Mark had been sending money regularly and generously. So where did the money go? Not to scams, not to luxury, but to survival. To a family deeply in need of consistent help but unprepared to manage large sums. Enter Tyler Oliveira, a rising YouTuber known for his investigative content, rapid growth, and controversy-charged titles. His video on Appalachian poverty spotlighted the Whitakers. But the heart of it wasn't poverty. It was scandal. In his framing, Mark had raised over $100,000, and the Whitakers didn't know where it went. That implication alone was explosive. The video amassed over 1 million views. Comments piled in. Accusations followed. But there was one thing Tyler didn't do. He never asked Mark directly for answers. He made one brief attempt to request contact info, not for Mark, but for the Whitakers. Mark declined, citing privacy and safety. As with many of his subjects, Mark shields them from unsolicited attention, especially the vulnerable. And so Tyler moved forward without speaking to the man he was implicating. A social media scandal, not journalism, was what Mark called it. To the casual viewer, the story was simple. Money missing, family confused, fingers pointed. But behind the scenes was something more familiar, the hunger for virality. The formula: create doubt, stir outrage, go viral. Facts become optional. In a world driven by clicks and controversy, truth often takes a backseat to the story that sells. And this one sold fast. For Mark Leah, the fallout wasn't just digital. It was personal. He watched as strangers called him a scammer, a thief, a predator exploiting the vulnerable. Years of work, empathy, and giving reduced to a viral headline and a Reddit thread. He didn't lash out. He didn't threaten. He did what he always does, told the truth, quietly, methodically. He laid out the figures, explained the taxes, provided transfer logs, and most painfully described how every time the Whitakers needed help, he answered. Even when it meant reaching into his own pocket. Yet through it all, Mark says one thing stung the most. No one stepped up for him. Not publicly, not from the family he helped, not from viewers. "I never once got a thank you," he said, not with anger but exhaustion. After pouring over $100,000 into the Whitakers' lives, after enduring repeated calls for help, Mark came to a decision. No more GoFundMe campaigns, no more public charity, no more videos with the Whitakers. "There's nothing in it for me except headache and frustration," he admitted. It wasn't bitterness. It was self-preservation. He never asked to be a savior. He never claimed to be a hero. But he became a target. Not because he lied, but because someone else needed clicks. In the war between truth and viral spectacle, Mark Leah was collateral damage. And for a man who gave without asking, the silence that followed was louder than any accusation. This story isn't just about Mark Leah or the Whitakers or even Tyler Olivera. It's about the world we've built online, where truth bleeds out quietly while lies scream in high definition. Something deeper is revealed by Mark's experience, the rise of the outrage economy, where content creators race to the bottom, monetizing conflict over compassion. It's not enough to share a story anymore. It has to be twisted, sharpened, and weaponized for maximum engagement. Social media has flattened nuance. Context becomes optional. Viewers want clear villains. And when reality is messy, the edit button decides who looks guilty. Mark understands this now too well. He reflects not just on the scandal, but on the system that enables it. If I help someone, I'll do it privately, he says. This is not a helping channel. I might be a helping person, but this isn't about me. His voice, once driven by purpose, now carries the weariness of experience. Because helping in public doesn't just invite gratitude. It invites scrutiny, envy, and eventually betrayal. But the failure here isn't Mark's. It's ours. For rewarding scandal over sincerity, for clicking before questioning, for confusing views with virtue. The Whitakers are still in West Virginia, still surviving. And Mark, he's still filming. But something has changed. A boundary was crossed. A lesson was learned. And a little more of the soul behind the lens disappeared. In the aftermath of the controversy, Mark did something simple, something real. He picked up the phone and called Betty Whitaker. On camera, calmly, he asked her, "Have I been sending you money?" Her answer was clear. "Yeah, every few weeks. Sometimes 4,000, sometimes 5, sometimes more." She admitted she hadn't known the money was specifically for a house. She thought it was coming from Mark's own pocket. She didn't lie maliciously. She misunderstood. But that misunderstanding had consequences. The internet had already made up its mind. And so after over a year of support, over $100,000 sent and countless private calls answered, Mark closed the chapter. The GoFundMe's gone. Future videos with the Whitakers, unlikely. He's not bitter. Just finished. "Nobody came to my defense," he said. "No thank you, no support, just accusations." He paid the taxes. He bore the weight. He gave until there was nothing left. Not in his account, but in his resolve. This wasn't a resignation. It was a reckoning. One final, quiet confirmation, every cent meant for the Whitakers reached them. And now it's done. No drama, no grand finale, just the truth documented and released into a world that may or may not care to hear it. But sometimes, telling the truth isn't enough.